A long, long time ago, in a timeline far, far away, but still sort of here, or maybe a long, long time from now, or maybe right now, however you correlate dates in alternate timeline stuff. Anyway, whenever and wherever, on what we'd call Earth if we saw it, there were two really, really smart creatures that just kept getting smarter. If we saw them, we'd call them whales and squids. And that wouldn't be inaccurate, but those words don't mean anything in this timeline, nor do any human words. But because this description of a timeline that humans never existed in is written in English, somehow, I'll just call them whales and squids. Whales on this earth started out doing pretty much what whales do here. They're really smart, and they communicate and cooperate, and they live together and learn a lot from one another. But also on this earth, they evolved kind of a trunk type appendage so they can manipulate and grab things. I'm not sure what evolutionary pressures led to that, but I can't think of a way for whales to do much technology without a manipulator appendage, so on this earth, they have that. While the whale trunk was a strong and capable manipulator, it was tough to do fine work with one large-ish appendage. So for a long while, whale technology was limited to fairly large woven kelp structures and animal bones, including whale bones. Though a seemingly rudimentary framework for technology, whales pushed kelp and bone technology to astonishing limits. Mechanical structures were developed including pulleys, belts, levers, and ratchets. Arbitrary lengths of kelp could be woven into tensile structures, providing means to store and preserve live food. Worldwide industry and commerce developed around the whale's use of kelp and bone to raise, trade, and consume ocean livestock from kelp to cephalopods. Eventually, the abundance of whale resource led to the creation of sophisticated whale culture, including art, sports, and entertainment. Long before the interspecies enlightenment, a common spectator event in whale society were the squid fights. Certain species of cephalopods had been domesticated by whales by breeding for desired characteristics. Though most breeds were selected for food and utility value, some were bred as pets and some as fighting animals. Fighting squids were bred to be both ferocious and intelligent. In addition, they were trained extensively to use their own bodies and a range of provided weapons to injure their opponent in vicious, lethal matches. Though entertainment fighting squids were the most prominent use of aggressive squid breeds, they were also trained as guard and attack animals. Effective guard and attack squids were essential to maintaining secure whale society. Though whales were powerful and very robust creatures, their ocean still contained many dangers. Sharks and lesser aquatic mammals posed an ever-present threat to whales, though a healthy whale could generally protect themselves. A healthy adult whale could generally protect themselves against reasonable threats of this nature. Whale society required the use of powerful, domesticated squid protectors in their struggle against squids society. Squids on this earth started out doing pretty much what squids do here. They're really smart, extremely wily and clever, but they don't live very long or have much of a social instinct. But actually, on this earth, a species of cephalopods evolved the capability to kind of care about each other, and they started hanging out in cooperative groups that learned to communicate danger and resources, so they got eaten less, and they evolved longer lifespans than most cephalopods. Squid life was never easy, and even as a budding society, they faced ever-present existential threats. But squids' minds are pretty amazing, and once they learned to share what worked and didn't work, it wasn't long before squids learned technological tricks that started blowing even the most professional whale bone kelp smiths' minds. Squids mastered kelp and bone to a much finer degree than even the whale masters. They could assemble complex, functional clockwork mechanisms from sculpted fish bones, coral, and shells. But they were curious, observant, and fearless to their individual detriment, but a lot of squids trying a lot of things and sharing the results led to an explosion in their technological capability. They learned to concentrate and mix substances to create self-hardening, cement-like material that could use to construct structures no other creature could penetrate. They utilized gas-generating microbes to generate power by harnessing buoyancy as a sort of analog to steam power. They even experimented with long-range acoustic communication systems, but that created some problems. Squid society for a long time existed in a microcosm. The cooperative squid species was native to a small gulf area that was unattractive and largely inaccessible to whale society. They were aware of large aquatic mammals, but the squids had never interacted directly or even been observed by a civilized whale. Squid acoustic detection systems had revealed a complex ocean full of strange sounds from unknown creatures at great distances. They were believed to be aquatic mammals, and some squids suggested the communications indicated an intelligent society, but many dismissed that idea. Even so, long range acoustic transmission research was strictly banned until more was known about the wider ocean. By that time, squid society had developed extremely effective hunting tools and techniques, such that they had no trouble bringing down an aquatic mammal the size of a whale, provided it was alone and the squids were prepared. So eventually, the curious squids finally agreed to send an expedition beyond their gulf with an acoustic transmission device, with the intent of using it to rebroadcast some of the recorded acoustic sounds and, see what happens. The assumption was, at worst, it wouldn't work at all, and at best, they might have figured out a great new way to bait aquatic mammals, and they'd all go home with some fresh carcasses to share. The outcome of that expedition is only known through the dying testament of its only survivor, in which he described a vast, uncountable army of whales that carried giant kelp nets and bone spears. This single event was the essential catalyst for all future civilization on this earth. Predictably, the squids freaked out and became psychotically militant for 100 generations or so. The reports of subsequent reconnaissance missions into whale society revealed a nightmare world of squids being bought, sold, eaten alive, worked to death, then eaten, experimented on, then eaten, killed by another squid and then eaten, or even trained to kill other squids at their whale's master's command and then eaten. They aggressively expanded within and then far beyond their gulf. They developed long-range communication undetectable to whales, built incredible weapons and defenses, and even began to program to breed and train aquatic mammals, including whales, as war animals. It was open species warfare for about 1,000 years. Both species killed one another with abandon. And occasionally one side or the other would marshal an unimaginably massive force with the intent of finally ending the threat the other species posed, but that always ended with lots of dead whales and squids, but plenty of more live squid and whales with even more apparent reason to hate and fear one another. It is unclear how the interspecies enlightenment began, but the accepted apocryphal account is that two lost juvenile whales were met by a remote tribe of squid society that had been out of contact for several generations and had lost a cultural memory of the species wars. The tribe accepted the whales as members and taught them squid ways and lived harmoniously for years. The story tells that one day the tribe heard a skirmish between squids and whales, and some went to investigate. The tribesmen, a whale and 4 squids, were seen and attacked by both sides thinking they were an attempt to flank the other. So then this Earth timeline actually splits again. In the nice timeline, the skirmishers see the whale and the squid tribesmen defending one another, and it stops the battle. And then they find out about the whale-squid tribe, and everyone is inspired. And slowly but surely, society changes, and yada yada yada, you get a happy whale-squid planet. But in the regular timeline, all the tribesmen were killed immediately. The skirmishers fully understood the whale and squid tribesmen were defending one another, but they were disgusted by it and considered them to be traitors to their species. But then later, the tribe discovered they're dead, and they wanted to find out what the hell, and they found a world where whales and squids hated each other. Well, the tribe was a tribe, and they said, screw both these idiotic species for messing with our tribe, so the whale squid tribe set out to teach whales and squids you don't mess with the whale squid tribe. It did take the whale squid tribe a while to catch up, both in population and technology, but they had some willing converts from both species, and that helped them get started. But most importantly, they had both whales and squids, and whale and squid technology, and new and interesting intersections and synergies with whales and squids and whale and squid technology. The whale squid tribe deployed increasingly overwhelming force against remaining whale society and squid society. Though the war between whales and squids had raged for 1,000 years, it took less than 100 for the whale squid tribe to end the interspecies war and annihilate any semblance of the global powers that once struggled for dominance. But after that, things went a lot like human civilization. The whale squid tribe only remained unified for as long as there was a whale society and a squid society to fight against. After that, they ran out of common enemies. They just became whale squid society and started dividing along all kind of other stupid lines that anything they could find. They have regional differences, biological distinctions, even identity politics, which is super weird for a two species culture. It's pretty stupid, but they do have way cooler movies and TV because it's not all from one species perspective. The space program was very interesting. They never had much combustion, but they started with high atmospheric balloons that eventually were able to use a combination of buoyant lift and rotational launch mechanisms to deploy small vessels into orbit, which could then use cold gas thrust and slow aerobraking to deorbit. So whales obviously never saddled up, but squid could basically pack themselves into a padded bag with a water circulation system and withstand upwards of 30 Gs. Interesting footnote. The aliens in Star Trek 4 weren't aliens. They were timeline jumpers from the nicer whale squid timeline where they all got along better. The ship was actually broadcasting looking for whales or squids, so the crew of the Enterprise could have saved a lot of trouble building that giant whale tank by just taking a few squids back in bags.